This is not a candidate for president who is thinking about how to make your life better. This is someone who is unstable, obsessed with revenge, consumed with grievance, and out for unchecked power.
America is on the brink of change. Every day, the country's political landscape is changing. One of the most prominent voices trying to shape this future is Kamala Harris. In her statements, she has repeatedly emphasized the threats posed by Donald Trump. In this video, we reveal the accusations and warnings Harris has made against the president. Kamala Harris and Donald Trump are two political leaders who represent opposing forces in American politics. Their views on governing the country, their approaches to key issues, and their political strategies differ significantly, making them figures who are constantly at odds with one another. Kamala Harris, now the former Vice President of the United States, continues to actively criticize Donald Trump's actions, especially when it comes to his approaches, which she believes threaten the foundations of American democracy. Harris believes that many of his decisions and statements damage the country's political system, undermine trust in government institutions, and call into question the principles of the rule of law.
Two different visions for our nation. One, ours, focused on the future. The other, focused on the past.
Even before Trump was elected the new president of the United States, Kamala had already voiced her opinion on his plan for 2025.
Donald Trump intends to give tax breaks to billionaires and big corporations. He intends to cut Social Security and Medicare. And he intends to surrender our fight against the climate crisis.
One of the main themes of her criticism is Trump's leadership style, which she considers authoritarian. Harris has repeatedly spoken out against his methods of governance, believing that they threaten the values on which American democracy is built, such as freedom of the press, independence of the judiciary, and separation of powers. Harris pays particular attention to Trump's attitude toward the electoral process. In particular, she has harshly criticized his allegations of election fraud and claims that the results were rigged. In her view, such statements could destroy Americans' trust in elections and political processes, undermining the very essence of the democratic system.
Donald Trump said that because he does not want a military that is loyal to the United States Constitution. He wants a military that is loyal to him. He wants a military who will be loyal to him personally, one that will obey his orders even when he tells them to break the law or abandon their oath to the Constitution of the United States. In just the past week, Donald Trump has repeatedly called his fellow Americans the enemy from within.
Continuing her criticism of Trump, Kamala Harris argues that America's future must be built on restoring citizens' trust in government institutions and strengthening democratic principles. In her view, the country must return to more inclusive approaches and restore respect for human rights and fundamental freedoms, which are essential for the stability and development of democracy. Her words and position have a significant impact on public opinion, shaping new benchmarks for future generations. This criticism may also influence the changes that will take place in the U.S. political system, for example, in terms of electoral processes, strengthening democratic standards, and reinforcing political ethics in the future. Kamala Harris has also been a vocal critic of Trump's policies on women's rights, particularly on abortion. She has spoken out against his efforts to restrict women's access to abortion, which has been one of the main themes of his administration. This issue became particularly acute after Trump appointed judges, including to the Supreme Court, who, according to Harris, could influence the overturning of the decision establishing the right to abortion. Harris believes that this is a step backward for women's rights and a violation of their right to choose.
Today, our daughters know fewer rights than their grandmothers. This is a healthcare crisis, and we all know who was to blame. Donald Trump. He openly says that he is, quote, proud that he overturned Roe v. Wade. Proud.
Harris argues that access to safe and legal abortion is not only a health issue, but also a fundamental right of women to make decisions about their own bodies and lives. She believes that attempts to restrict this access threaten women's rights and exacerbate social inequality. In response to Trump's policies, Harris insists on the need to protect women's rights and make access to health care, including abortion, safe and affordable for all.
And Donald Trump's not done. Did everyone hear what he just said yesterday? That he will do what he wants, quote, and here's where I'm going to quote, whether the women like it or not.
Kamala Harris has also repeatedly accused Donald Trump of trying to roll back progress in the U.S., particularly in terms of the social and political achievements the country has made over the decades. She believes that his policies have often been aimed at weakening the progressive changes that have been achieved in areas such as women's rights, minority rights, environmental protection, and healthcare.
Since 2016, is that we are in the midst of seeing progress being rolled back, policies that we birthed being rolled back, the terms that we use for what is progress in America being turned into a pejorative.
From Harris's perspective, Trump is not only rolling back social and political progress, but also weakening American democracy by undermining citizens' trust in government institutions and violating fundamental principles of the rule of law. She believes these are dangerous trends that could have long-term negative consequences for the United States.
Is that there is a sense of fear that has been taking hold in our country. And I understand it. But we're saying people stay quiet. We are seeing organizations stay quiet. We are seeing those who are capitulating to clearly unconstitutional threats.
Kamala Harris also frequently criticizes Donald Trump for manipulating facts and spreading false claims. She has repeatedly stated that Trump uses disinformation as a tool to change public perception of events to his advantage. Harris argues that such actions, in particular, his unfounded statements and distortions of facts, seriously undermine public trust in the U.S. government and political institutions. In her opinion, the spread of false information not only confuses the public, but also weakens the foundations of the democratic system by creating distrust of official sources and institutions that are supposed to ensure transparency and accountability.
This campaign, he is focused and actually fixated on his grievances, on himself, and on dividing our country. And it is not in any way something that will strengthen the American family, the American worker. It is nothing about what he is saying that is actually going to support the aspirations, the dreams, and the ambitions of the American people. It is absolutely something that is intended to and is fanning the fuel of trying to divide our country.
Kamala Harris claims that Donald Trump has become a symbol of division in America. In her opinion, his policies contribute to deepening divisions between different groups in society, fueling hatred and mistrust. Harris believes that under his leadership, America has become more polarized, which weakens the unity of the nation. She criticizes Trump for his rhetoric, which often exacerbates political, racial, and social conflicts. For example, his statements, which sometimes sound like justifications for violence or discrimination, contribute to increasing divisions between different segments of the population.
Within, and even said that he would use the United States military to go after American citizens. And let's be clear about who he considers to be the enemy from within. Anyone who refuses to bend a knee or dares to criticize him would qualify, in his mind, as the enemy within.
It is important to Harris that the country moves toward unity and solidarity, rather than being divided along political or racial lines. She insists that America must find ways to build dialogue between different groups in order to overcome tensions and conflicts. Harris is convinced that this is the only way to maintain the stability and prosperity of the nation and strengthen citizens' trust in their government institutions and in each other. Harris has repeatedly accused Donald Trump of corruption, claiming that his actions during his presidency were primarily aimed at personal enrichment and benefiting himself and his family. Harris believes that Trump used his status and power to promote his own business interests, which violates the principles of honesty and transparency that should underpin the work of the government. These accusations have become one of the main themes of her public speeches and are actively discussed in her political agenda. She draws attention to his ties to various businesses that may have received lucrative contracts or preferential treatment during his presidency. Harris argues that such actions undermine public trust in the government, as they demonstrate that power can be used not to serve the people, but for personal gain. In her opinion, this poses a serious threat to democratic institutions, as corruption weakens them and makes the government less accountable to the people. Harris insists on the need to fight corruption and restore Americans' trust in the political system in order to bring transparency and honesty back to the work of the authorities.
And again, we're not going to be gaslighted on this. We remember Donald Trump hand-selected 3 members of the United States Supreme Court with the intention that they would undo the protections of Roe v. Wade, and they did as he intended.
There were also accusations that Donald Trump was ignoring the interests of ordinary working Americans and the middle class. In her opinion, his policies primarily serve the interests of the wealthy and large corporations, while working families are left without the necessary support. Harris emphasizes that economic disparities have widened under Trump. The tax cuts he promoted mainly benefited billionaire companies, not those who work in factories, schools, hospitals, or small businesses. She argues that instead of supporting those who work hard every day for the good of the country, Trump has focused on strengthening the position of the wealthiest. Harris also criticizes his plans to cut social programs such as Medicare and Social Security, which she believes will hit ordinary families, seniors, and those in need of medical care particularly hard. Her speeches echo the idea that for the country to grow in a sustainable and equitable way, it is necessary to build an economy that works for all Americans, not just the wealthiest. Harris emphasizes that respect for work and concern for the middle class must be at the center of public policy.
Unlike Donald Trump, I will always, I promise you, put the middle class and working families first.
Kamala Harris's statements often resonate widely with the public. Her press conferences and public speeches raise key questions about the future of the country, forcing people to think about what kind of America they want to see in the future. Harris presents Americans with an important choice. Do they want to live in a country divided by political conflicts and social contradictions? Or do they aspire to build a nation united around democratic values and principles such as equality, justice, and respect for human rights? She points out that the country is currently experiencing a period of significant division, with political differences becoming increasingly sharp and social problems deepening. Kamala Harris emphasizes that for a successful and stable future, America must find ways to overcome these divisions and restore unity, building on the democratic values that once made the country strong and progressive. In her view, it is these values that can serve as the foundation for overcoming the current difficulties and building a more just future for all citizens. According to her, his attitude toward power and actions aimed at undermining democratic norms demonstrate a dangerous trend. Harris believes that Trump despises the system of checks and balances that was designed to protect democracy in the United States.
That Donald Trump is someone who, I quote, certainly falls into the general definition of fascists, who in fact vowed to be a dictator on day one and vowed to use the military as his personal militia to carry out his personal and political vendettas.
Accusations of attempts to usurp power, undermine trust in institutions, and to pursue personal gain are becoming important themes in the political confrontation. Regardless of one's attitude toward Trump, one thing is clear: the political landscape in the U.S. remains extremely polarized. The coming years will show what consequences this deep division will have.
He wants unchecked power. The question in 13 days will be, what do the American people want? Thank you.